Welcome to Balancing the Ledger, where tech and finance intersect. I'm Jen Viechner.
And I'm Robert Hackett.
And we are very lucky to be joined by Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple. Thanks so much for being here, Brad.
Thanks for having me.
So you've had a lot of updates this year with Ripple and RippleNet, which is your blockchain that many financial institutions are using. Can you give us an update on what's going on and how they're using it, who's using it?
Absolutely. So I think, Ripple, I think, has been really fortunate in the context of the broader blockchain and crypto ecosystem. We've been very focused on a specific customer set, a specific problem around cross-border payments. We've been selling into banks and financial institutions for a few years now. We've signed up over 200 banks and financial institutions globally. Recent ones we've talked a little bit about things like MoneyGram. We announced a very big partnership with in, I guess, June. They went live in July and August, and actually even in their earnings call in August, we're talking about how they're tangibly seeing the benefits of using XRP to help facilitate their liquidity needs. So we feel really good about the momentum we have there. And even this week announced some partnerships in the crypto-specific area with BitPay, a company that allows you to use cryptocurrencies to check out at like a PayPal checkout or Visa checkout. Now we'll be supporting XRP, and CoinMe, an ATM network that will also be supporting XRP going forward. So excited about both of those.
And if I understand correctly, MoneyGram is actually using XRP in its transactions, which marks a big evolution for you because there are some financial institutions who are using Ripple but not actually XRP. Can you explain how that evolved and how that's going?
So I think a lot of times, I talk about the more than 200 banks and financial institutions we're working with. Most of them sign up and engage us on a fiat to fiat basis. Dollar to yen, dollar to Mexican peso, dollar to Argentinian peso, and that's because that's how the correspondent banking network works today. In effect, some people describe what Ripple's original product and initial product is called kind of Swift 2.0. Swift is what correspondent banks use for messaging to debit and credit the pools of liquidity. And when I say pools of liquidity, I mean like pre-funded accounts. The Bank of Jen and the Bank of Brad would have accounts at each other's banks, and you might be Mexican peso, I'd be dollar, and we debit and credit those with messaging. That works if the accounts are pre-funded. And what we have found is there's more efficient ways to manage liquidity. If you as a bank don't have to put money at my bank and I don't have to put money at your bank, I can use that money for other things. It's working capital. MoneyGram, as an example, has several $100 million of negative working capital. They're a public company. That's material to their business for sure. If by working with them, they can reduce the amount of pre-funding, that is very accretive to how they think about the use of capital and what they can do with that if they didn't have that negative working capital out there.
I know some of the hesitation from some of these financial institutions is that XRP, being a cryptocurrency, has some added volatility risk as opposed to fiat currency, dollars, pesos, whatever it might be. How do you get over that, or how do you overcome that risk?
It turns out this is a risk that is a little bit of a red herring, and it's born of, I'll use Bitcoin as an example. A Bitcoin transaction has taken as long as 8 or 10 hours on highly intense days of activity on the Bitcoin blockchain. So if you have to hold Bitcoin for 8 hours while you settle a transaction, that's a lot of volatility risk. An XRP transaction is always about 4 seconds long. So if you're only holding a highly volatile asset for 3 or 4 seconds versus holding fiat, a low volatile asset, for a Swift transaction, maybe 3 days, it turns out the volatility risk, because it's such a short amount of time, is lower using an XRP transaction than it is using a Swift transaction that might take 3 days. Now, I think people don't really understand that today, and part of the misinformation and education for us is helping people understand that. But I think that's part of the crawling and walking and run as crypto goes from, I think, kind of the shadows, frankly, into how do we solve real problems for real customers at scale.
Well, one thing to jump off of that point, stable coins are all the rage right now. Everybody's coming out with a dollar-backed or some other sort of asset-backed coins that they can conduct trades quickly, seamlessly, but also without the volatility. So what would be the advantage of using XRP, for instance, rather than using one of these more sort of like designed to be fully stable assets?
Yeah, a stable coin like USDC, for example, that Coinbase and Circle have done. I think that is interesting in mitigating volatility. But you still have to go from dollar to peso, right? So at some point you have a bridge, somebody has to bridge that. And in effect, what Ripple's doing is, let's make XRP the most efficient, the most liquid, and the easiest to bridge by selling effectively the connectors on both ends, selling APIs to allow people to connect to both ends of that. If we have hundreds of banks interconnected to use XRP for that, I think that bodes well for the liquidity of XRP.
It's basically who has the most liquidity is going to win this game.
I mean, that's what I believe. I think different people believe different things, but that's okay.
You have all these financial institutions who are now using XRP. It sounds like more people are using it, and yet the price has declined this year recently. Why do you think that is?
I think if I could predict the price of crypto, I would not be here. I mean, the crypto markets are hard to predict for sure. And, in many cases, even now, the altcoin basket is very correlated. And so when I say altcoin, I mean everything but Bitcoin. Bitcoin has outperformed the rest of the crypto industry this year. What that looks like in the future, hard to predict. I think over the long term, meaning 2, 3, 4, 5 years, that correlation, I think, will start to reflect those that have a real use case. I'm very enthusiastic about not just what Ripple is doing, but the community of companies working around the XRP ledger. Coil is a very interesting company doing something around micropayments using XRP, where you really can't use something like Bitcoin for the purpose of micropayments in terms of the cost per transaction or speed of the transaction. It's much more appropriate for XRP.
There's a lawsuit hanging over Ripple right now. A group of people are saying that XRP and Ripple are sort of tied together, and that XRP could be considered an unregistered security. What would you say to them?
Well, it's pending litigation, so I'll probably be a little bit, muted on the topic. Suffice it to say, we don't think it has merit. These are people who didn't buy XRP from us. We also don't believe XRP is a security. I think one of the poignant arguments in my point of view is, if I went back to the office and said to the team at Ripple, hey, we're shutting down, XRP trades on 130, 140 exchanges around the world. XRP would keep trading. So you're like, wait a minute, okay, so if it's a security of what? It's not a security of Ripple. It doesn't give you the rights to dividends or ownership of Ripple, the company. We have shareholders of Ripple, right? We raised a Series A financing, a Series B financing, and we own a lot of XRP, but they're two separate things.
At the same time, we've seen recently Block One had the hammer come down on them from regulators. They were basically said that they were selling an unregistered security.
And fined them $24 million. Just
it's interesting you call that a hammer. They raised $4 billion and they paid
it's a light hammer. It's a light hammer.
You and I have a different judgment of what a hammer is.
Maybe it's a fly swatter.
Hammer.
Either way, so what's the difference between Block One and their token EOS versus what you guys are working on?
Well, I think one really important distinction is the XRP ledger existed before Ripple, the company. You can, it's a public blockchain. You can go back and see kind of transactions 0, 1, 2, 3. You can see when Ripple was incorporated in the Secretary of State in California. Ripple didn't create the XRP ledger. The XRP ledger had utility prior to Ripple's existence. Certainly we are an interested party in the success of the XRP ledger, for sure. We own a lot of XRP. But it's a little bit like saying, Exxon owns a lot of oil. That doesn't make oil a security. Exxon's clearly interested in how to, we can argue about the health of the, I'm not here to debate carbon emissions.
Climate crisis, do you want to get into that?
Maybe this isn't the example I wanted to choose here, but suffice it to say, Exxon cares a lot because they have a lot of exposure to in this case, commodity called oil. Is Exxon doing things that are trying to drive a healthy ecosystem around oil? Yeah.
You were at our Brainstorm Finance conference in Montauk
Great event.
In June. Thank you. It was the same week that Facebook announced their Libra project. And at the time on stage, you said, this was a great week. You were super happy about it. Now we've seen there's been some backlash from regulators with the Libra project, and some doubts from their partners about whether it will proceed. How are you feeling about Libra now?
Look, I think anything that's good for the crypto ecosystem is good for Ripple. It's good for XRP, it's good for Bitcoin, it's good for ETH, the whole 9 yards. That week was a great week for us because I think the way Facebook announced Libra, and I use that, I should say, they announced the Libra white paper, is they talked about it in context of, in one particular quote I thought was maybe got a lot of good attention for Ripple, was this idea that if Libra is successful, it's going to put Western Union out of business. And I think that was a quote by a Facebook employee. And if you're a financial institution and you hear that, you're like, wait a minute, you're coming after me. And I think a lot of financial institutions recognize that as digital-first companies enter financial transactions, it's not going to take 3 days to settle a transaction to London, right? It's in order to compete on a level playing field, you need to have, not just today's set of technologies, but even going forward to tomorrow's set of technologies. And a lot of, particularly for cross-border payments, you're stuck in a technical architecture built 50 years ago. What Ripple's doing is saying, look, we can take that, way beyond where we are today and make it far more efficient. So, what happens with Libra and their white paper initiative? Hard to predict. I think, maybe that would have been better received had Facebook not been the point of the arrow. Facebook has been in the crosshairs of a bunch of governments around the world, and I think what we saw happen was, not surprisingly, in my opinion, the regulators saying, whoa, wait a minute, there's a trust issue over here that we're concerned about, and now you want to go into, consumer financial services. And again, the way that the initial white paper positioned Libra, the Libra coin, was really as a competitor to fiat. I think that's a different animal than certainly how we think about, using XRP and the role of many digital assets in the future.
Are you bullish on Facebook's ability to execute Libra as they originally laid it out in the white paper?
No. By the way, I guess if I parsed your question exactly, do I think they have the technical competency to do that? Sure.
But will it happen?
I think in the regulatory headwinds they're facing, I think are substantial. And, should they have predicted that? We can debate that. But I think, what they have said publicly, I believe, is that they don't intend to launch anything until they've made regulators comfortable. I've read some of the statements from some regulators, and I think it's going to be a tough road.
So you don't think it'll happen?
If I were a betting man, I were taking an auger bet on, will Libra, maybe there is actually,
there should be.
There should be, if not, I would bet that Libra, I think there's a time-based element on auger as well. So I'll say, I'll take the over-under of, let's say the end of 2022, I think Libra will not have launched.
If Facebook isn't the right company to do this now, given the regulatory headwinds, is there another company or organization that you think would be better suited to launch this project?
Hey, I don't know. I think the problem is the genie's a little bit out of the bottle. If the two of you got together and launched something that wasn't called Libra but looked an awful lot like that, and got some of the same participants to come together, would it likely achieve a little more success? Maybe. I think now, Libra, at least from a regulatory point of view, has, it's viewed as a Facebook project. I know we can debate that, but the perception is 100% that it's a Facebook project.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
For sure.
Hopefully to have you back before 2022.
We'll see.
Yeah, Brad, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
I'm Jen Viechner.
I'm Robert Hackett. For more Balancing the Ledger, come to fortune.com.
We'll see you next time.